As we crossed the Sea of Galilee, there were these F-14, F-15 fighter planes from the Israeli Air Force were buzzing us over the Sea of Galilee. They were heading up towards the Golan Heights of Syria. They were heading off towards Lebanon. They were crisscrossing the Sea of Galilee, and they were flying really low, right over our boats. I thought, wow, is there something happening that I don't know about? And then we get over to the other side, and then we find out that the Israeli army is getting ready to launch a major offensive into Lebanon because of this. Hezbollah was lobbing this Katyusha rockets into northern Galilee. And their Syrian forces were gathered in the Bekaa Valley and in southern Lebanon. And I thought, wow, things are really heating up. And so I told my wife, I had been studying Bible prophecy for a number of years, and at that point I said, you know what, this may be it. We might be, here for the Ezekiel 38 fulfillment here. And, but a few months later, after we left, I was watching on KITV News that the Israeli army had gone into southern Lebanon, and they had uncovered all of these tunnels. And I have a book called Wars and Rumors of War. This fellow Christian gave me this book, and it showed photographs of all of the armament that was found in these southern Lebanon tunnels. There were tanks and artillery and missile and rocket launchers were all buried in these tunnels in southern Lebanon. And they were what we call pre-positioning of armament for a major offensive into Israel. And they also found plans of a Russian invasion into Israel. It's called Operation Pincer. This prophecy writer wrote about this. But see, it wasn't God's timing yet. 1982 was not God's timing. And the interesting is that the allies that would come with Russia into this invasion were Iran, And Bible prophecy experts like Chuck Smith and a lot of these experts were telling Israel, why are you giving spare parts to Iran? This was during the early 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq war, where Israel was helping Iran during this war. And prophecy experts could connect the dots. They could see the future. And they said, you got to read your Bible. In Ezekiel 38, it says that Iran or Persia will come against you in the latter days. And you're helping this country. But, it's funny how these turn of events happen, because the Shah of Iran was replaced by the Ayatollah Khomeini, which reversed Iran's position and took an anti-Israel position. And the same thing is happening today. This past week about this Turkish flotilla crisis that caused this major crisis where this mercy ship, this mission ship is coming to bring aid into Gaza, but these Israeli commandos stormed this boat, and there's this conflicting reports and say, well, I won't get into this, but this morning I was watching the news, and they were interviewing this Turkish ambassador, and they were saying, are you starting to move away from your relationships with Israel? Because Israel and Turkey had always been a long-standing ally. And many years ago, prophecy scholars were saying, watch Turkey. Turkey, who is a long-standing ally of Israel, will turn. And the time when Turkey turns away from Israel, be careful, because Ezekiel 38 is right around the corner. And that's exactly what's happening today. This prime minister was saying that I think it was just a couple years ago, there's been a strain of relationships between Israel and Turkey. And now Turkey is trying to pull towards Iran and Syria. And it says there's adversary relationships with Turkey and Israel. And, it's amazing how fast and quickly these things are coming together. So you can see that Ezekiel 38 of Russia's invasion into the Middle East is right around the corner. How close are we? And we'll get into that on June 20th, more of that. This is the Lebanon War. Okay, in 1981, AIDS was discovered along with Ebola and the hantavirus, SARS. Now we have monkeypox virus, West Nile virus. All of these pestilences are increasing. Of course, we just had the swine flu epidemic. Now, Greece became the 10th nation of the European Common Market in 1981. 1991, the Desert Storm War. And after that, soon after that, the world said, hey, we got to have peace in the Middle East. And that's why the 1993 Oslo Accord happened. And that's why in 1994, peace with Jordan was made. The Berlin Wall came down. The gospel was being preached to all nations, an increase in false teachings, the genocides of Darfur, Sudan, and Bosnia, the natural disasters soar. In the 1990s, the number of wildfires, flooding, record-breaking flooding now, snowstorms, heat waves, India, 122-degree heat, hailstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes. 1974, that rash of that super outbreak of tornadoes here devastated so. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. In 1990s, they had the first F5 tornado that was recorded. I believe it was in Oklahoma. In the 1980s and 1990s, pornography and satanic movies started to increase. The move to rebuild the third temple in Jerusalem, push for comprehensive Middle East peace by 1999, the New World Order, the homosexual agenda and the gay agenda, pedophiles, mass murders in this time. How many of you know that yesterday was the gay and pride parade? You probably saw it on the news. This is an abomination to the Lord. And as Pastor Chuck had said, as well as other pastors, that when a nation or when a society turns to open homosexual agenda, that's the end of the nation. And I'm really concerned about the United States as well as our city. If you have time, I want you to read the book of Romans, Romans chapter 1. And it tells you the severity and the abomination of the homosexual agenda, of homosexuality and lesbianism. And this is happening. We are living in the days of Lot today. In 2000, we had the euro currency, the Camp David. 2004, Hurricanes Charlie, Francis, Ivan, and Jean. In 2004, there was massive hurricanes in the Gulf and the Florida Panhandle. One was a very interesting hurricane. It was Hurricane Jean. Hurricane Jean was a Category 3 or 4 hurricane that was headed for Florida. And what it did, it made a 360-degree loop, and it confounded, it stumped the weather forecasters and all of these scientists, and says that's not supposed to do that. And it first threatened Florida, made a 360-degree loop, and stormed the shore on the eastern side of Florida. Very, very unusual. Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Wilma, Category 5 hurricanes. The Pakistan and China earthquakes. Here's an interesting one, the 5,000 dry lightning strikes that happened in Northern California. People were saying these dry lightning strikes, they were all part of arsonists. But much of the wildfires that were created were from dry lightning strikes. And I couldn't figure out what is a dry lightning strike. And it's when you see lightning and thunder, but there's no rain. Very odd. There's 5,000 of them that started these dry lightning, these fires, these wildfires. When President Barack Obama visited Hawaii on the day after Christmas, you probably remember this day if I told you what happened the day after, that day and the day after. How many of you remember that day, the day? There's a power outage, right? You remember that power outage? And we were driving up to a post-Christmas party the day after Christmas, and we were heading up towards Alewa Heights. Me and my wife, we saw these lightning bolts come